everyone. Father Jared coming to you on this Friday. I've been getting this sort of question a lot lately. So, how do you feel about having kids at Mass? Or, that sort of question, asking me specifically as a priest how I feel about it. And I actually love having kids at Mass. I think it's great. It's always good to see our youth among us at Mass, to see every generation represented from cradle to old. I think that's such a beautiful expression of the timelessness of our faith. And so, me personally, I love having it in, and people ask, do you get distracted? And my answer is typically not, because I try not to actually pay all that much attention to you, because Mass isn't about you, isn't about me. It's ultimately about the Lord, and it's about what is happening on that altar. It's what's happening in the liturgy of the Word. It's about our Lord's word to us, but then also his lasting testament in the Most Holy Eucharist, the body, blood, solemnity, true presence of Christ among us. That's where it's at. That's what it's about. It's about him. It's about worshiping him, giving back to the one who has given us everything, and then he in return gives us everything again in full. And so I think it's so important to recognize that for me personally, I'm trying to enter into the mystery of the Mass. I'm trying to go to heaven, because that's what happened is heaven comes to earth. And so I'm trying to reach out towards heaven while I'm saying Mass. So not that big of a distraction for me. Maybe sometimes during the homily, but to be honest, even then it's just you just kind of keep on going. I can push through that and it's no big deal. So then that's kind of my own take. Now the question also then kind of comes up, well, should parents bring their children to Mass? And the answer is, again, I think yes, absolutely. Bring your kids to Mass. And why? Well, I think there's two important things to keep in mind. There's obviously always more, but one, and the biggest reason I think, is it's good for them to see you pray. It's good for them to see you, worshiping our Lord. As I've probably said many, many times in my homilies or in my talks, seeing my parents pray at Mass, seeing my parents pray in adoration, having my parents, even when we went on vacation, make us go to Mass, is something that really, really affected me as a kid, really, really deepened my faith, and I think really laid the foundation for my vocation to the priesthood. It's so important for your kids to see you pray. And, so I think it's good for them to not only see you pray at Mass, but also see you pray at home, to lead your family in prayer, especially for all you men out there, hint, hint. And I think that's such a fundamental thing, is that they need to see you at Mass. They need to see you praying to know that it's important to do both of those things. So that's one. Second one is they're never going to learn to behave at Mass unless you take them to Mass. Doesn't matter if, it's a young kid or whatever situation. We don't know how to act in new situations. That's just the way that it is. We try to figure it out, and over time we get it. It's the same thing with children. So not saying it's good to just let your kids run amok in church, but be patient with them. And it's important for us to be patient as a parish, as a community, with having kids in church, because, it's not an easy thing for parents to bring them and try to both pray the Mass and then also try to keep their kids in line. It's a balancing act. It's a learning process, and that's okay. We can all learn to be patient. We can all support each other, encourage each other to grow in faith. And so if they don't come to Mass, they don't learn to behave. And we want them to come to Mass. And then over time, with encouragement and maybe some gentle correction, they'll learn. They'll get it. So that's one. Or that's number two, sorry. That's number 2 point. And then finally, there's a third question that comes up in my mind, is does the church gain anything by having children to Mass? So we understand why it's good for the children themselves to bring them to Mass. It doesn't bother me. But what about the church as a whole? What about the parish as a whole? What about everyone else who's worshiping at Mass? Do we gain anything from that? The answer is, I think yes, absolutely. Because, one of my classmates in the seminary would always say, if babies aren't a-crying, the church is a-dying. And I think that's fundamentally the truth. If a parish doesn't have children, doesn't have young children, that parish doesn't have a future. The church doesn't have a future. So it's important for us to let parents know that it's okay to bring their kids to Mass, because if they don't come to Mass, and they probably never will, if they don't come as kids, they probably never will come, even as adults. So it's important for us to encourage and support parents in making that important in the lives of their children and important in the upbringing of their children. And so it's good for us because, well, then that gives us a future that lets us know that our church still has hope. Our church has a future, because then we get the whole spectrum, and again, it represents the timelessness of our faith, I think, in many ways. And then also, I think another thing it does is it also teaches us to bear patiently. One of the spiritual works of mercy is to bear with wrongs patiently. So we bear with those wrongs patiently. We handle those, not saying that having children in the church is wrong, but I'm saying that we're supposed to bear our trials with patience. And so I think sometimes where we get this idea that church is supposed to be comfortable, quiet, and serene, it's like church isn't a Hollywood production. There are going to be flubs, slip-ups, mistakes made. I've been saying Mass for 2.5 years. I still make mistakes. I still get it wrong. And it's okay. It's a good thing that we experience our own humanness within Mass, because it lets us know we're still on the way. We're still in process. We're still growing. And so I think, can different things, can children be distractions? Yes. But for some reason, I don't know why we think that distractions are like the worst thing in the world. Like, distractions happen. Anyone who's tried to pray for any length of time over, a period of months, years, knows that distractions happen. Doesn't matter. If you don't have it exteriorly, you're going to have it interiorly. And it's something that you have to learn to push through. You have to learn to surrender. You have to learn to bear patiently with, if you want to advance in the spiritual life. And it's the same at Mass. If we don't learn to put up with minor distractions, we're not going to learn how to ultimately truly pray and to truly trust God, no matter the storm that's going on around us. Because I think there's also something akin to, not wanting children, within our church, I think is akin, like annoying children. So like children that we consider to be difficult or a distraction is akin to, wanting to kick annoying doctrine out of the church. So like, don't talk about that hell stuff. Don't talk about the church's sexual teachings and like all those different things that people always say, like, don't touch that. I think it's akin to the same sort of idea that like, we don't want to be distracted. We don't want to be disturbed or made uncomfortable. And that's just rubbish. Like, we need to be made to feel uncomfortable. We need to feel kind of like that tension, because that lets us know that we're hopefully growing, hopefully that we're advancing, hopefully that we are learning to have to like give up something of ourselves in order to obtain something from the Lord. That's just how it works in the spiritual life. That's how it works in life in general. And so I think that we also learn from, sometimes children, when they can't be allowed at Mass, we also learn how to deal well with just distractions in general, when we learn to bear patiently with others, which is a really, really important thing for us to learn. So with all that being said, I hope that makes sense. Again, bring your kids to Mass. I love having them there. I know that Father Hess does as well. I think many priests do. I know many people love having children at Mass. So please continue to break them. Thank you for bringing them. Thank you for witnessing and wanting to pass the faith on to your children. It means a lot to me, and it assures me that indeed the faith is still alive and well. So with all that, know my prayers for you. Please pray for me, and God bless.